AI is changing design faster than we ever expected. Some designers fear it's replacing them. Others see it as the biggest opportunity we've had in years. What's the difference here? I think mindset has something to do with it. In this video, I'm going to break down how AI is transforming design, the mindset shift you need to stay ahead, and the real opportunities AI unlocks for designers like you and me. For years, being a designer meant thinking about the user's needs, but also crafting pixel-perfect interfaces, refining UI elements, and spending hours perfecting the execution side of things. Your value, in some ways, was in how well you could bring an idea to life visually, whether we like to admit that or not. But now, AI can generate user interfaces, illustrations, it can even do full brand identities to a certain degree pretty instantly. So does that mean that designers are obsolete? No. But the role is changing. Some of the old mindset issues are things that designers have had problems with in the past themselves. Designers equaling pixel pushers who are refining UI manually, or high effort on execution and the production side of things. And also, craft was the most valued skill in many ways, particularly with user interface design and graphic design. But the new reality is now that AI can execute stuff pretty instantly and it can shift the design value. I think designers are going to become more like curators and orchestrators than executors in the old-fashioned sense. I think systems thinking is one of the most important things that a designer needs in their toolkit. Thinking about workflows, thinking about the strategy, the landscape of the business. Design as a more end-to-end service design way of thinking instead of pixels, screens, flows, things like that. As we know, design isn't just about how something looks, it's about how it works, but also how it connects and how it fits into a system. That's where I feel like designers will thrive. Something I would always encourage when I'm doing coaching or just talking with other designers is always to be thinking about the system level of design. How can you think beyond just the silo or the area that's right in front of you, the work that you're doing right now? How does this connect into a bigger picture? What part and what role does your work play? And then that's where you can find some opportunities. So when you think about things more like a service or more like an ecosystem, you can start to identify opportunities maybe that weren't that apparent in the first place. A lot of people in tech, whether you're a designer, or you're an engineer, or you're a product person, whatever it might be, you usually focus on a portion of the overall company or the overall product or service that you're working on. And that's kind of where your domain lives. I think it's important to be able to step out from that, be able to zoom out at different levels. If I'm involved in interview panels, I'm often looking for designers who can think like that, who can think and operate at different zoom levels. It's very easy to see someone who can execute UI or graphic design or visuals to a very high standard, and that's kind of what you expect in that kind of role. Often that requires, thinking about a design language, thinking somewhat systematically about how everything is executed, but quite often focus on the minutiae, the details of the execution of the individual UI elements and the overall page layouts and the overall design language. But as you become more of a principal designer or systems level designer, staff level designers too, you have to be able to see things zoomed out level. And I think it's important if you can move between those zoom levels where necessary. So the more senior you get, generally you start to move away from the execution of the very in-focus detailed work that most designers do in their career. You tend to have to step out a little bit and see the horizon and see what's connected, see where there are connections or opportunities to connect the dots across the business or across the service or across silos that are often in companies. That is a skill that is timeless. That is something that will stay with you if you have a good mindset and you grow and try to grow that skill of thinking more systematically than just the execution on what you're working right now. With those skills, I feel like there's a capacity to be able to grow and adapt to the ever-changing industry and the landscape of what design looks like today. If AI is about automating execution, where does that leave designers? The answer is zooming out, as I mentioned before. Instead of focusing only on screens, designers will focus on workflows, interactions, and, as I said before, systems. How everything fits together, not just how it looks. This is why information architecture, service design, and systems thinking will become the new power skills for designers. So recapping on some of the old mindset versus the new mindset shift required. It's moving from execution to curation and direction, from craft focused to system and strategy focused, from designing screens like UI to designing interactions, workflows, and end-to-end experiences. If you're only focused on UI design, AI will likely outpace you. But if you start designing the systems that the AI operates within, you'll become more valuable than ever. All right, so how do you actually apply this? Step one, I would say, is experimenting with current AI tools. You don't have to take on everything. It's pretty overwhelming when you look at the landscape of all the different design tools that are out there. I would pick a couple of the different tools, things like Replit or V0 for prototyping up proof of concepts, using chat interfaces and getting a sense for what it means to actually use prompt engineering, or even formalizing your thinking in your mind and how you can communicate that back to AI. Because when you speak clearly and you communicate clearly, the AI doesn't just benefit. That's actually a skill that helps you talk to senior level engineers as well and people in the business. It's a skill that will follow you around. Step two would be build a systems thinking mindset. As I said before, think beyond screens, learn information architecture, service design, automation. These are some core skills that will really stand the test of time when it comes to the evolution of the industry and being a designer within it. Step three, I would say get comfortable with prompt engineering. I know that kind of sounds too technical and it might sound intimidating, but as I said before, experimenting with some of these tools and going in there with an intentional mindset. If you go into a tool like V0 or Replit or whatever new tool comes out at the moment, think about the quality of what you're putting in there and what you expect to get back. If you just put in, make me a best-in-class website or make me a product that's, that will make $1 million or whatever, that they're quite generic prompts that you're putting in there. You're going to get quite generic answers back. It might look okay, but you're not really going to get anything that really kind of opens your mind to the new possibilities. When it comes to prompt engineering, at the moment, I'm approaching it like I'm talking to a very experienced, very patient engineer. So I will be very intentional about what I'm saying. I try to be very clear about the ask, and I'll try and make it very efficient in how I structure what I'm asking for it. I'm not being overly mindful of like the exact formatting that needs to be, or templates of formatting that's required for prompt engineering. I literally am just talking to it like I'm talking to a very patient, very senior engineer. And that's one of the things that stood out for me before, the patient side of things, where I can ask questions and ask questions again, or start an interaction like, what APIs are available in this particular domain that I might be able to use? And then once he comes back with information there, you can start to tune it and experiment with it. I could have those same conversations with an engineer, for example, but it's not as time efficient, and they probably go, hey Tom, look, I'm busy, I've got things to be doing, I can't be answering all these questions that you're just throwing at me right now, which is understandable. But I think when it comes to experimenting at the moment, try to see how far you can get with your understanding of design and technology right now, and then you might put together a proof of concept that will make a conversation with an engineer you're working with, for example, much more productive. If you show something that's kind of a proof of concept and it's speaking the technical language similar to how engineers think, that will help with your credibility when it comes to communication with developers, engineers, technical-minded people. Step 4, experiment with creating AI-powered workflows to use. So if you use AI to automate any kind of tedious tasks that you might have, so you can focus on the high-level design work. When I say that, I mean the most important strategic work that makes the best use of your time. Step 5, you're going to be hearing me saying this a lot in all the videos that I put out, but you need to stay adaptable. I think if you're a resourceful, thoughtful, intentional designer who can see how the skills might grow and what new tools and capabilities they need to pick up, I think staying on top of those types of things will work out well for you in the long run. This is the first video that I've put out that's talking specifically about AI. I'm sure there'll be many to come. I think the important thing to think about is that AI is not the end of design. It is absolutely the biggest shift that we've seen in decades. There's no denying that. But I think the designers who adapt will have more opportunities, not fewer. So, as I said before, adaptability, keep that in mind. Always be looking at new ways of thinking, always be looking at new ways to be more productive. But at the same time, And it's easier said than done. Try not to get overwhelmed by all of the tools, all of the talk, all of the shaking up that's happening in the industry. What I'd recommend is bite off a couple of tools, try to use them in your workflow, stress test them, see if it can expand the way you think. So that's my take in this video. What do you think? Does AI make design better or worse? Feel free to drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what your take is. And if you found this useful, hit like, subscribe, share it with your colleagues, and I'll see you in the next video.